I don't trust YouTube, as you shouldn't, because they always says you're live and then you're not. Refresh.
Just ask. Hey, anybody out there? Type in something.
We're live. I just see it. Yeah, but always takes like a couple tries to see that YouTube is working. So anyway, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good night for all of you who are watching this. Because I don't know if you're watching this live or not, as we always joke about calling it zombie mode. That doesn't mean you're dead. That means you're not watching it live. And after that stupid joke, my usual public service announcement of the day. Let me check the microphone so you hear me well. You ready? Okay. Wear your fucking mask. Let me repeat. Wear your fucking mask. And I'm going to explain it now in more polite terms. The mask is not to protect you. It's to protect others from you. If you don't wear a mask, you're risking everybody else's lives. Your elders, your kids. And if somebody tells you that children don't get infected, that's a lie too. And anybody you care for, your girlfriend, your best friend you haven't seen in 6 months, and suddenly you're an idiot and you decide, oh, I'm not going to wear a mask because I want to hug her. No, don't be an asshole. Don't do it. Wear your mask. Protect people. And as I always say, if you think you're immortal, or even worse, you don't care about anybody else's healthcare, life, chronic illnesses, or even if you could cause their death, leave this fucking channel now. I don't want potential murderers or people who doesn't care for each other's safety in this channel.
It is true that we could beat this pandemic if we just stop breathing on each other, because that's how it spreads.
Absolutely.
It needs us to breathe on each other to spread. If we just don't breathe on each other, it can't go anywhere and it dies.
Absolutely. Anyway, I didn't say hello to you. So hello, Jeff. How are you?
Hello, David. How are you? I'm doing very well. How about yourself?
Well, Phil, we're in the middle of this thing and we just cope with it and go forward. We're in the second wave, as you know, hoping that it ends. It's more under control than the first time because, of course, doctors know more and the ICUs have less people in. But we're at the risk that at any moment, in the next 2 weeks or in the next month, it goes really bad again. So he's hoping they can stop it. How is it in your neck of the woods? How is it in your area? How's things?
It's heating up. It's been very good. I feel very lucky. I don't really know anyone personally that's actually died from COVID, except for an uncle who was very, very old. But in my neighborhood, there doesn't seem to be anybody that's sick. And knock on wood.
Yeah.
I'm like everybody else. I'm just doing puzzles and drawing comics, and once a week I slip out to the store and make sure I wash my hands and wear my mask and get some groceries. That's about it.
Yeah. Imagine I'm going to change my name now. My name from now on is Dr. Victor Frankenstein. So okay. This is my vaccine for you. I just give you a shot. Pandemic is over. We're fine. You can go out. You can do whatever you want. So the first thing you could do that you've been missing for months, what is it?
Oh, go out to dinner at a restaurant. Hands down, that's the very first thing I would do. Yeah. I really do miss that. But Jay and I have a lot of friends. We like to go out to dinner. We like to have dinner parties. We like to have our friends come over and entertain. We can't do that. I do miss eating and having a little wine with friends.
Mm-hmm. Do you miss conventions at all? And I don't mean conventions per se, of course, the signings and the hassle. I mean, seeing your fellow pros just hang out, go out to dinner, and that serendipity that happens to all of us when you're going to a convention where you're in a dinner with somebody and somebody shows up you haven't seen in years, sits down, and you start talking like it was yesterday, the last time you guys talked. Is that what you really miss?
Yeah, that is, you described it perfectly. It's almost like we're members of a tribe, and we just get together. Well, you get together more than you think. I mean, a lot of cartoonists that I know go to 5, 6, 7 or more conventions a year. I used to go to shows over in Europe at least twice a year. I haven't been in a while now. Not just because of the pandemic, but because, I'm slowing down a little bit. And that's the thing. I was kind of starting to say, I need to slow down. I need to do less shows, less conventions. And then this pandemic hit, and I can't go to any, and I'm miserable. I so want to go.
Yeah.
Like it gives you something to do and to aim for. It's like, oh, I've got to get my next project done in time to go to this show or go to that show. And I can't wait to see Charles Vess or Terry Moore or some of my friends, Scott McCloud.
We had a Scott. I was here with the Scott a month ago or something, and the guy had me here for 3 hours. Oh, and seriously, we were just chatting about the language, and of course you know him, so it was a lot of fun. He's amazing. But that's what I was saying. I tell to everybody, we have convention withdrawal. Every time somebody asks me about, you surely don't miss, having to travel 6 times a year to the US, long plane trips and all that, and I'm like, believe it or not, I'm missing it.
I do. Well, I'm sure you don't miss the plane flight because those are murder. Those are murder.
No, especially not the San Diego one, which is 15 hours. So that one I don't miss. But yeah, it's that you realize that that thing that you were tired of, you suddenly like, yeah, but I miss it. It's like I need my shot of sitting down, talking to that fan. I think it was Paul Jenkins who told me that, you're sitting down and you see that fan that it's always there in that same convention, and it's almost a friend, and you expect him to come and say hello and chat with you for like 5-10 minutes, 1 hour or something. Yeah. And you suddenly realize, that weekend I was going to see that guy. Yeah. He was going to come by my table and we were going to talk.
Well, just any person who reads your comics and they come year after year, you get to know them a little bit better than than other people in like the queue. But even people that are new, when they ask you a question, and it may be a question that you've been asked or I've been asked a million times, this is a new person. This is a new person that's just discovered the books, and the characters are new to them and they're exciting to them, and I get energy from that. It's not just, here I have to answer this same question. Yes, I made up the bone characters when I was in kindergarten or whatever. For this new person, it's all new for me too, because this energy is this terrific feedback loop that goes on. Mm-hmm. And I do miss that. You get ideas. People will tell you, I really like this particular thing that happened. And you go, I didn't realize that had that kind of an impact. I'm going to play that up and add that into the comic a little bit more. Things like that. Mm-hmm. I miss it a lot. I miss it very much.
Do you remember the last time you went to watch a movie before this started?
Gosh, I hardly do. I think it was when the last Star Wars came out, which I don't remember when that was. But I think I live half the year in Key West, Florida, and there's not very many movie theaters down there, so I don't see too many movies.
No, I was asking because it's really weird what's happening. A lot of people, even if they watched the last movie, in March or April, right before lockdown and everything happened, when I ask them about the last movie they watched in a theater, they don't remember. It's like we are on the other side of a black hole. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I don't remember. I think that's the last one I saw. I don't remember.
Did you? So let me ask you the question. Did you like it?
Not really. I mean, I don't. It was, don't get me started on Star Wars, man. We'll be here longer than Scott McCloud.
Okay, what about Star Wars?
I was one of those people that I liked the first two of the ones that came out, the Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. I loved those. I thought, wow, this is exciting. I do not know where they're going with this. Mm-hmm. And then the last final one finally came out, and it was nothing that happened had been set up. Nothing that occurred was earned. I mean, just having the Emperor come back, what? That wasn't set up. That wasn't earned in any way. He just appeared, and everything. I don't know. Nah.
Now, I remember when I watched it. Of course, I didn't like Last Jedi, but I love Force Awakens. But when they said J.J. Abrams was coming back, I was like, okay, so basically it's not going to be a movie. This is going to be him trying to make the first and the second movie fit to make a third. And that's impossible. What he told in the first one and what Ryan Johnson told in the second one are completely opposite. I don't know how they allowed, Johnson to do that. Just, what?
I agree. I agree.
I think you said up in the first one, fuck off. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to do my thing. Like,
yeah, but it was so exciting. He introduced that idea that they could actually touch and have this mind meld thing. I thought that was very interesting, and I did not see it coming. And that fight where they fought together was one of the best things I ever saw. And I read some fan theory. See, I told you were going to be sorry if you asked me that.
I don't know. I'm fine.
I read a fan theory that I thought would have been really good, that would have tied Johnson's story into it. That the bad guy in the end is, I forget his name, Schnod or something. Snoke. Yeah. So it was him. And then so they, Kylo Ren goes to this place, and it's Snoke, except Snoke is really the guy who taught Palpatine how to rise from the dead. So he could be like, you can't kill me. I'm already dead. I'm back. And I was like, now that would have been a good story.
That was what's the character was Darth Sidious or something like that?
Yes.
So it wasn't really Snoke. Snoke would be Darth Sidious. Yeah, I read that theory, and it would have been a really nice one. But if we take Last Jedi out of the continuity, no, but I mean as a lone movie, that would be amazing. But the problem for me was to put it as the second part of the trilogy, denying everything that happened on the first one.
Yeah.
So I gave the third one a lot of leeway, to be honest. I was like, he just has to make it fit, and that's impossible,
Well, I'll tell you, long and the short of it is, I bought a copy on Blu-ray. It's on the shelf with my other Star Wars movies. It's there, and it is what it is, and I will rewatch it all, I'm sure.
Yeah. And you know what? I have a 6-year-old, our daughter, and Ray's an amazing role model for her. So we put the first and the third one mostly, but especially the first one. Yeah. She loves watching Ray and the first one, growing and with and in the desert, with that slope and all that. So you know what? Even for that reason, good enough for me. And I don't care about Star Wars mostly, to be honest. I think there's just really one good movie in all the Star Wars 9 movies. For me, that's Empire.
Yeah.
The rest
was pretty good too. First one, I like the first one. Okay. I'll tell you, I was 17 years old when that first one came out. So I wasn't really into I wasn't even reading comic books anymore. I was just into, girls and, getting my first car, riding around with my buddies who had driver's licenses, and I had just got mine. And I saw Star Wars, and the same summer, a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine who loved the Lord of the Rings, talked me into reading the Lord of the Rings and trying my first, tea, having a little bit of tea,
yes,
for the very first time. So picture that: Star Wars, the first one, Lord of the Rings, and heavy metal. Metal Hurlant came out in the U.S. that summer as well. So I got Bilal, Tardy, Mobius, Star Wars, and the Lord of the Rings all in one summer. That was it.
And I think Chaikin's Cody Starbuck was being published at the same time. There was a lot of stuff, that was, raining on us at the same time. That's amazing. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Oh, I like them both.
And of the new stuff,
am I not allowed? Is that not one of the choices?
No, you're absolutely allowed. Every time I'm asked that, I get like, why do I need to choose? To be honest. Yeah. But what do you think about the new Star Trek TV shows? If you have watched any,
I do. I watch them. One thing about doing comics is you go over the piece so many times. You kind of jot down ideas. You do little thumbnails. Then you actually, I write the script is like a little miniature comic, and then you start to blow it up and you draw it nice and real. And so by the time you ink it, I mean, I've been over this material, 4 or 5 times over long stretches. So I watch a lot of streaming TV or DVDs or Blu-rays that have director commentaries. I'm really big on that. So Yes, I watch a lot, and I really dug the Picard. I mean,
Yes.
I was all in on that until like the last episode, and I was just like, again,
Yes,
what?
yes, exactly. Yes.
I,
My
I was
wife hates Star Trek, except for maybe the first Abrams movie because that was fun and that's it. But it's like normally she finds it boring. But she was watching Picard saying, "This is amazing. This is good Star Trek. That's it. This is what I wanted to see." And he got to the last, to the last two parts, to the last two episodes. It's like, what the hell is this? Why?
right. I just don't know what happened. I know we're geeking out a lot, but I'm hoping that this relates to what we think about as what it goes into story.
Oh, it's a story. This is a storytelling. Absolutely.
It was storytelling, and I was with that thing all the way because I just thought this is crazy. They got the Borg ship that they treat as an artifact, and they're trying to learn and figure it out. When 709 came back in, and then she plugged herself into the Borg cube, I'm like, what is going to happen? What is going to happen? Can't even imagine. She's taking control of the Borg. Is she going to be able to control it? Are they going to be able to fight the Romulans? Are they going to be able to fight this machine universe that's got? I'm like, what is possible? This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. And 1 second later, they hit the airlocks and blew all the Borg out, and it was over. And nothing happened. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
That is a mistake. You don't do that. You do not take an opportunity that is so exciting and so ready to just blow your story wide open and then just kill it. What was the point of it?
If I'm the new showrunner, because Michael Chabon left the show after the first season, I could say,
he did.
What?
He did. He left.
Yeah, because he wanted to tell his story. He told it, and he's going to do his own show.
Well, I thought he did a brilliant job. I mean, that last
absolutely. But if I'm him, if I'm the new showrunner, him or her, I just say, and first thing I say is, okay, that thing with the Borg ship exploding, how can we fix it? How can we say it never happened and it was, 7 of 9 made a manipulation, warped it to the other side of the universe. I don't give a shit. But that you're not allowed to do it because we can tell a million stories with that.
Right.
And the Deus Ex Machina, with Picard dying, not dying. If you haven't watched it, I'm not going to spoil it, but that part, I was like, why? Okay, so you planned that the show wasn't going to be renewed, so you were going to kill him, and then you couldn't think of something better to do than this?
Well, just keep him alive. Just why kill him? Oh, sorry, we're spoiling the hell out of this.
Whatever, yeah, too late. What do you think about Discovery? Star Trek Discovery.
Oh, Discovery. I actually
sorry.
I actually watched the first one, and I did like it. I noticed a huge similarity to the plot of the Multiverse that was very similar to RASL. I don't know if you read RASL, but I obviously didn't make up multiverses or parallel universes, but I did have this thing that I thought I contributed to that lore was that one of the universes was using the rest of the universes for fuel, was eating them up. And that then in RASL, they had to discover which one it was and shut it down. And that's what the plot turned out to be. And I was like, wait a minute, I worked hard on that. So I don't know. I don't definitively know that they didn't just come up with it on their own, because that definitely can happen. But it kind of took a little of the fun out of it for me.
Yeah, I didn't like the first one because absolutely all of it felt borrowed, if you know what I mean. There was nothing original. It's like, I'm going to take a piece from this, I'm going to take a piece from that, I'm going to take a piece from that. So
a piece of RASL.
A piece of RASL. No, including that. That's what I mean. There was also Grant Morrison in there. There was some parts of the way Grant Morrison used multiverses and all that in his books, like JLA Earth 2, etc. They took bits and pieces of it, and the worst part is like in the Matrix, when you can locate the Matrix, that's invisible, or that's this other book. They took it from there, and you can locate where they took it from. And that's
Star Wars is exact same.
Yeah.
I mean, he was obviously reading Jack Kirby's Fourth World.
Yeah.
And among millions of other things, but yeah.
But he made in Star Wars. I could say that Lucas made his own stuff. You can see, of course, there's Kurosawa. Absolutely. There's Cody Starbuck. Absolutely. There's Mobius. Absolutely. There's, you know, a lot of things that are in there, but you can see he made his own mythology based on those.
Yeah.
In the first season of Discovery, there's no own mythology at all. It's bits and pieces, and you can see they don't match.
Ah, you're right. No, I do. I definitely give Lucas credit for being inspired by, not just stealing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I would recommend the second season of Discovery. And I didn't like the first one, to be honest. I have to be convinced to finish it, because the moment Captain Pike and number one, you know, the original captain from the Enterprise, in fact, show up, they took over the show, and it's amazing. It's a completely different show. You there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was reading some of the chats. Thank you for some of your nice comments.
All right, we get there. So
I remember my very first visit to Barcelona. It was you were running the convention, I believe.
I was yeah.
You were working. You were part of it.
Guest coordinators, yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is my memory of Barcelona. It was taking place in a train station.
In the train station, yeah. That was the first one. The second one was already in the new convention center.
Okay, so I was at the first one. Okay. Well, I remember
not the first Barcelona con. I mean that the first time you came, it was in the train station, and the second time I've moved to the.
I just remember loving Barcelona. I have so many stories about Barcelona that we could just talk about that. But one of my main memories was showing up for one of my very first signings, and it was in the main train station, and there were booths and people were waiting, and there was like a huge queue. But I was also doing a signing with, and I don't remember who it is. If you remember, but he was a very famous guy who did a comic strip, I think, that was very, very popular in Spain.
Ibanez.
Yes.
You were thinking with the most famous comic creator in Spain ever, you know, with Mortadelo y Filemón, yes.
So they put myself and Athanis in this booth and started the signing. And I never saw anything like it in my life. The whole room, it felt like, just started coming toward us. And the guy, there was like a young woman right in front of me, and she was starting to get squished. And I never saw anything like that in my life. I had to actually get up on the countertop and say, step back, everybody, step back, because it was really stuff. And I mean, I don't think anybody even knew that it was happening, because it was just sort of an incremental. Yeah. They probably thought the line was moving, and it wasn't. But but I have never seen anything like that. It was so, I mean, nobody got hurt, obviously. Yeah. It would have been a different story. It was actually just really fun. Everybody had a great time. And after that, it was wonderful.
And it was crazy because in that train station, if you remember, not all the tracks, but there were still tracks still working during the convention.
Yeah.
So space was really limited. So that probably happened because, you know, somebody was too near from the tracks, and somebody wasn't there to say, you know, the queue, move it to the side, don't go back. And suddenly somebody was like, shit, train is going to kill me. So he started pushing or something like that. It was really
I loved it. I thought that was a great place to have that event.
Yeah, but it became too small for the size of the con. And I would say 2-3 years after you first came, we moved it to the big convention center.
Because you were outgrowing it that year I was there, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. The con grew up a lot. One question. Why comics? And I mean, of all the possibilities you have, comics, you know, animation, movie storyboarding, whatever related to art.
Flipping burgers.
For example, that's also an art. You know? Anyway, I consider flipping Spanish tortillas an art, well, just so you know. But aside of that, why did you decide comic was the thing that was closest and near to the heart?
Well, I think it struck me very young. I fell in love with comics even before I could read. Peanuts with Charlie Brown and Snoopy and Lucy. My father used to read comics to me. Every Sunday, you know, the big Sunday comics would be there in color, and he would read to me all sorts of comics, Donald Duck, Charlie Brown, just all the comics that were in there, High and Lois, just some of it wasn't that great, but I didn't care. But my dad also used to read to me Mad Magazine before I could read. So you're talking like 4, 5 years old, 6 years old, or however, when you're learning to read. And Mad Magazine is a very kind of, it was I don't know what word I'm looking for, but it was telling me things that I'm not sure it was supposed to be telling me about how adults really thought about the world and what was in people's minds when they're writing a commercial, trying to make you feel bad about yourself, about the way you smell, or about anything. Your teeth aren't white enough, they just prey on that to get you to buy stuff. That was the essence of Mad Magazine. What were politicians really doing? They're really out for themselves. So I felt like, even as a youngster, that comics were really the only thing that was real, that looked real to me. I mean, think about Charlie Brown. Mm-hmm. Now, I grew up when Charlie Brown was in the heyday of the 60s, when Snoopy climbed up on his doghouse and started flying, and that was very exciting. But also, Charlie Brown would get embarrassed on playing baseball or on the playground when he wanted to talk to the little red-haired girl or whatever. And when he would get embarrassed, you could feel it. You could feel it just with the simplest drawing and the little squiggly line of his mouth, and his stomach hurt, and you could feel the stomach, how it felt. And that's really how it was, what it was like when you were a kid to go, interact with other kids, and you get bullied or whatever, or you get embarrassed or humiliated. So I got my first glimpse of truth through comics, and it really remained that way pretty much. I never got over that. Mm-hmm. So that's why. And of course, then as a grown-up, and I started to explore really doing comics for a living, either comic strips, although I switched eventually to comic books. As I explored the art, what does it mean to have a panel with a character here, and then you make another panel over here, and the characters moved so much. This gets very quickly into Scott McCloud territory, but it's very important. And I discovered that I had a real knack for it. I really liked it. And when I started drawing comic books, the very first comic book I ever did was Bone #1. And I had been trying to draw Bone as a comic strip for years, and I just couldn't sell it to any of the distribution companies that put them out into newspapers. But when I did the comic book, because I was going to self-publish it, because I just figured I better try this or I'll hate myself if I don't. I discovered that it was so much more natural for me to do stories that are in multi-page increment. So I didn't have to tell a joke in 4 panels. I could tell a joke in 4 pages, and that just naturally worked for me. So
was it liberating in a way, because the comic strip allowed you only like 3 panels, but then you felt like I can use the space I need because of the format?
Yes, absolutely. In a comic strip, especially if you're going to have any kind of a story that goes on, you have to use 1 panel to kind of recap. Mm-hmm. I mean, you don't write down what happened before, but you have the characters have to say something or show something that kind of reminds everybody where they were, so they can get into this new joke. Well, yeah. So now you're handicapped. So even if you have 4-panel comic, which is what I was trying to do, you're down to 3 for whatever you're going to do for the day.
Yeah.
Yes, it was very liberating, and I suddenly thought, wow. I really felt like I belonged there. And it was very intuitive for me to switch from 4 equal squares to multi-sided squares, full-page squares, splash pages, just everything. I was lit. I was just lit up and ready to roll. It was very fun.
And then since we're getting into the language, I normally, warm up before, but we started already, so let's just go into
we warmed up by talking about Star Wars and Star Trek.
That's true. We said that story.
Right.
We started with that already. So what do you think it's the most unique thing for you that makes the comics language so different to any other media, any other artistic expression? And I mean movies, comic strip also, but TV shows, novels, etc., etc.
There's something about most things that you can do in a comic, you can do in a novel, and you can do in animation or a movie. But there is something about the interaction with the reader, reading the work that the author, the creator, a cartoonist has done, that there's a timing that's created that exists. No other medium can create the same kind of timing. I think you get more out of a pause. You can't get a pause really in a novel, and nobody will let you do a pause in a movie, right? Everybody's like, you gotta just keep moving. Or if there is a pause, it's only when it's someone who's just a master of the form, like Miyazaki. He'll just stop to look at the water and see a little fish run through the water and sun glints off it. He'll do that. That's very rare in films. But I'm actually talking about, like, if I'm just doing a sequence with, say, Phone Bone or something, the part of the part of comics that's motion, that's in movement, is created and brought to the table by the reader. And I think I think there's a special moment in there that I think is stronger. And like I say, it's usually in the pauses. It's better.
There's another part that your screen is. If you see that your screen was frozen, so we're fine again. It's you're moving again. I didn't know for a second that you had to stop speaking. Don't worry about it. I'm fine now. Don't wait, don't fall. I don't want you to die. Anyway, the other thing that I was going to say is in terms of the language, and then we're going into what I mentioned before. Well, before we started about, yes, people, I'm going to mention Einstein again. What I think is more special about the comics language is that I think comics is the only art form that can defy his theory of relativity. And let me explain. From the first, you're frozen again, by the way, the first corner of the first panel to the last one of the last panel in a book, you control the time and space. You can, depending on the shape of the panel, you can slow, you can make it faster, but you can also move forward, backwards, and in any way you want. In literature or in movies, it moves. It just moves. It just goes. Even if you had a flashback there, it's something that is always jarring because the narrative is always meant to go forward. The arrow of time, as Einstein himself would say. But in comics, you can just be at any moment in time, at any moment of your story. What do you think about it?
I agree. You said I was frozen. I don't know if you're just joking.
No, that's fine. I can see you moving now. Yes, it was for a second.
But is the camera working okay? I'm not freezing up or
now it's working okay. Sometimes your image freezes, but now you're fine. Yes, okay. I see your fingers.
I agree. I actually agree with you. I think it does kind of illustrate relativity very, very well because it moves as fast. I mean, I try to control how much time a reader spends on one panel and how quickly he moves to the next panel. But ultimately, it's the reader whose engagement creates that. And that definitely illustrates relativity for sure. And there's another idea of no, I'll let you ask another question.
No. I wasn't going to ask. I was going to tell you you're absolutely right. Another part, which is in a way, since you as creators control time and space in that way, you are the biggest manipulator in any kind of art. But at the same time, which is the part that I love the most about comics, you completely depend on the reader, as no other art does. So you're the biggest manipulator, but at the same time, the reader is going to always complete what's in the gutters, or complete, if you give him 2 lines in something about that I love about comics too, is pattern recognition, which is you never complete. You just suggest, and you're telling the reader, hey, I'm going to suggest, but you need to complete what I'm giving you. So you consider yourself a part of my equation, to say it in a way, right?
That's right. I totally agree with that. Yes, I do.
So what is more important?
It's like what the experience. I mean, I've talked about this a lot, so I don't know if this is an old idea, but it ties into this. The act of watching a movie is a very passive experience. The film is shown to you, and the director has made all the decisions on speed, volume, everything. Just it runs at 24 frames a second, and that's going to be done. Whereas reading a comic, which is a little similar, which is more similar to reading prose, it is active. You must actively, as a reader, engage your imagination to take this abstract experience and add time to it and dimension.
Mm-hmm.
So yes,
so
I'm with you, brother. It's Einstein would love comics.
I'm pretty sure he probably did read comic strips every day. I don't have any proof, but I would bet. And talking about what we were just saying, the pattern recognition. Do you think that a comic is less a comic in storytelling terms? I mean, when everything is so detailed and convoluted, it makes the experience so baroque that it's difficult to read it. Because I always thought, not that it has to be simplistic. That's not what I mean, but that you always have to leave space for the reader.
Yeah, you can. I learned pretty quickly that. This might be a long way to get to what your point is, but when I make a comic, okay, first I pencil everything. I pencil all like 24 pages, say, and I get my pacing all worked out, and I constantly throughout the process will lay the pages out sometimes on the floor, and I'll read them all. I just make sure that it still feels alive, everything's going. But then as soon as I start inking them, the pacing changes. It starts to slow down because once there's something with that black ink on there, there's something for your eye to lock onto, and it slows you down. And that same idea gets even worse if you noodle around and put too much detail. If there's too much, like if there's an image happening in one panel, and I want your eye to go to the next panel real quick. If in this first panel I put a lot of detail right here, and instead of your eye going right over to that other panel, you sit there and look at all that little detailing I did, and I don't want you to stop and look at my drawing at this point. I mean, there are times when I do, but times when I want you to get to this next panel because it's exciting. It's good. It's going to be good. Mm-hmm. I guess that is kind of the same idea of what you're talking about.
Yeah, and but sometimes as a creator, not sometimes, all the time, when you're creating a story, instinctively, what is more important for you, or what you see you go for first, emotion or the formal part of the creation?
Oh, emotion. I mean, the formal part is very important in order to do the story, but nobody reads it for formalism. Formalism is a tool to get the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's no question that usually what sparks a story for me, or even a chapter of a larger story, is there's usually one image, one strong image, and it might be foam boat and a rat creature tumbling through space, mm-hmm. like off a cliff. Well, I want to draw that because that's a strong image. I can tell it's going to be exciting and look cool. So then I kind of work the two directions. What did I have to do to get me there, or what did I have to do to go out from it? So I come into the story and get to that image, and I build around that image. Mm-hmm. And it's formalism that gets you there. That you understand how to set up your camera, how to set up your shots, how to do your cutting, all that staging, everything that gets you to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, that's something, again, we're going to Scott McCloud territory. That's something we both agreed when we talked, like comics have really no limits. And that's the other thing I love about the art of comics, that every new generation that comes, they just looked at it and just break the limits that they saw they were there. Yeah. And create new ways of seeing and creating comics. Like I always put the example of the female creators we have nowadays. Like Tilly Walden, Reynold Tegelmeier, etc., who are again reshaping the form of comics for the new generations. Do you see that comics have any limits aside of the ones that you as a creator put yourself to them?
I'm sorry, go ahead, say that again.
Do you think that comics have any limits aside of the ones that you yourself as a creator impose on them?
You mean like in terms of like topics or subjects?
No, in terms of the language. I mean, as in terms of the language of the topics, anything in general. Sometimes I think that the only limitation that comic has is when a creator doesn't want to. There's a wall in front of me. That's never been done. You know what? Let's not do it, because it's always the typical phrase of the main publishers. It's always been like that. It'll always be like that. So
yeah, no, I don't think there are. No, I mean, I blew through a few of them myself. I mean, just the fact that, well, but I mean, I probably don't have a lot more to break through because I'm old and I've done a bunch of stuff, and it might be somebody else's turn to come along and take a look at what I did and go, boy, he shouldn't have stopped there. He should have kept going. And then it'll be like the next person to do that, to keep going. And I see it, man. I put on a cartoon festival in my hometown called CXC, Cartoon Crossroads Columbus. And it's based on European style shows that don't take place all in one building. There's a few, exhibits around in museums and stuff. And it's wonderful. And we have our mission is to bring in, masters, Art Spiegelman or Chris Ware or whatever. But then also have moments where they can interact with younger people. Because I remember when I was just starting in the business and I got to meet Art Spiegelman or Frank Miller or someone, and this is someone who's been out there. This is someone who's made it, who is doing this for a living now, and that's a relief. That's kind of a relief when you just want to be a cartoonist, and it's a weird thing to want to be, David, because it's not like they teach it in school, or it's not like you go, oh, you can grow up and be a doctor or a lawyer or a guy who draws Snoopy. So it's I found that very relaxing to find out that Will Eisner, I met him when I was just trying to get, and he was totally a normal person. These are real people, and they draw on pieces of paper, and yeah.
So anyway, we agree that there's really no limits to the language of comics, that every new one that's coming is going to see what, all the walls you broke, and think which one is my wall to break to renew the language, right?
Right. I'm seeing a question over here. How do you develop your characters? Can I answer that?
Yeah, I was going to go in order, when we get to the questions, but you can go there. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I happened to look over and see it.
Let's go for it.
Okay.
Alicia Roy asks, how do you develop your characters? Yes.
Yes, it's Alicia Roy.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's usually a character kind of bubbles up somewhere, or I'll want to tell a certain kind of story, and the characters usually develop because I'll just kind of take two of them, say like with RASL, where I knew I had these scientists that were going to act together, but I also knew it was going to be a science fiction, it was going to be noir. There's certain rules to the genre that you have to follow, and so in that case, it was pretty easy. I needed to come up with the hero or an anti-hero, a femme fatale, and the bad guy. Mm-hmm. All right. So I kind of had that much, but to develop the characters, what I would do is start trying to write a scene. And writing a scene is a lot like play acting. When you just start, I kind of know what the topic is. So I get them talking to each other. And what I really look for is for when they're talking at cross purposes. When one of them wants to talk about one thing and the other wants to talk about the other, and they're sort of answering each other, but they're not answering each other with what the other person wants. So they're going at it the other way. And that's when the personalities start to appear and really start to crystallize. So this guy's a little more, self-interested. And so you can see his answers are more like, what am I getting out of this kind of thing? And the other person might be more excited about, in that case, the science that we're going to explode and deliver to the public.
Mm-hmm. Let me go with the questions then, so it doesn't look bad that we only answer one. Ben Bender, how is it going, guys? Hello everybody. Hello Felipe Brel. Hello Tom Gad, I'm here. See you. Hello Gonzalo Raya. Hi everybody. Ben Bender, yes, I've never watched this guy, but his first announcement has me sold as a fan. Thank you.
Wait, did you say Ben Bender?
Yep.
That's I know Ben Bender. He's a young guy doing. He's got a Kickstarter going. He might actually have succeeded and finished it, but he's got a new book out. Hello, Ben. What was his question?
Nothing. He just said, yes, I've never watched this guy, but his first announcement has me sold as a fan. Thank you.
You're wear your fucking mask. Wear your fucking mask, motherfucker.
Okay, thank you. No fan. That's what. Public service announcement, as I said. Gonzalo Araya. Jeff, my 9-year-old wants to know, where did the inspiration for Bone? He's been asked this a million times.
But I can answer it shortly.
Yeah, of course I know. We love your work. Currently reading it together. Saludos. And it's a 9-year-old asking, so we can say no.
Saludos, and I apologize that we said use the F word for the masks. Okay. We're in Spain. They can handle it. When I was a question still, how did I come up with the characters? Yes. I was 9 when I came up with the bones. No, I was like 5.
Oh.
And as I mentioned earlier, I was really into Peanuts and Charlie Brown, and I knew that Charles M. Schulz created Charlie Brown and Snoopy, because it said it right there at the top of the comic strip. And when I was 5 years old, Walt Disney was still alive, and he was on television every Sunday night. He had a TV show called The Wonderful World of Color, and he would introduce each episode. So he was around, and I knew that Walt Disney made up Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. So I knew that people made up their own characters. And even as a 5-year-old, I was fascinated by that idea, and I wanted to make up my own character. And I kept trying, and I came up with this little guy who had this big nose, and he just kind of stuck with me. That was the guy that I just continued to draw, and I explored. Like, I think the first time I drew him, he was yelling, at his mouth open real wide. He was like, he looked like that. He's like, ah. So I wanted to see what if I drew him with his mouth closed, what would he look like? What would he look like, from the front? And these are construction problems that I didn't call construction problems at the time, but it was those early bits of curiosity that kind of drew me into the world of drawing and cartooning.
Mm-hmm. Alicia Roy, your stuff is amazing. Stephen Weiner, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Hey Jeff, Jabaku Crop. The truth is I don't know English, so I had to watch this later. Please tell him that Gideon Falls is amazing. Big hugs, and I'm sorry I cannot continue watching because I don't speak English. No, no, ignore it. Ignore it. He got the wrong Jeff. Luis P. Videos, hello. Javier Merino, hello. Where did you get the idea for RASL? How was the process of creation of a story that is so different to Bone?
I mentioned earlier that the process of making comics is you have to go over the same material over and over and over. So you have to really, by the way, love what you're working on, because you are going to get sick of it. Mm-hmm. At the inking stage, I'm able to watch movies, especially movies that I've seen before, and there'll be like a director's commentary or something like that. And I was near the end of Bone. I was inking, and I was watching a lot of Humphrey Bogart movies, like The Maltese Falcon and The Big Sleep. I was watching other noir movies, and then that made me start reading crime fictions by Dashiell Hammett, and I just said, I want my next project is going to be sort of like a hard-boiled noirish kind of a project. I think a lot of people wonder if I intentionally wanted to do something, a little more mature than Bone, but I did Bone for grown-ups. I put things in Bone that were meant to scare adults. So I love it. I love it. I love it that people that are 9 or even younger, 6, read Bone and they're not afraid. I mean, they get scared when they're supposed to get scared, but they get through it. And I just think that's very exciting. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's how I started thinking about RASL with noir. And as I mentioned in the previous answer, noir has certain conventions that I meant to start with that. And the first idea I had was parallel universes. And I thought, what if you went to a parallel universe and you were you, but everybody else was a little bit different? Like you met your girlfriend, but she was married to somebody else, something like that. Or your wife was married to somebody else. And that was, then I began to explore the characters and do the role playing and types of things that I was talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm. You can imagine, because of the kind of questions I asked, that if I had to pick, and I won't because I love both, but if I had to pick between RASL and Bone, I'd probably pick RASL because...
Really?
Yeah, because
that makes like 2 of you.
I love interaction between science and art at all times. And that for me, the exploration you did in RASL is something that I haven't seen in comics, I don't know if ever, but in a long time. Because what Grant did is completely different, as you know. It plays more about the mysticism and shamanism and all that. So when I saw that, it's like, this is something that I would like to see more in comics. The exploration of science mixed with genre, as you said, noir.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun doing it. I spent 4 years doing the research for it. Most of that was still finishing at Bone, but then I got an offer from DC to do Shazam, Monster Society of Evil. So during that period, I was continuing to do research. I spent 2 years just researching the physics. What were the physics I needed? I love sci-fi. I read sci-fi when I was a kid, but I'm a bit of a snob. I like there to be a little real science in it. I like hard science fiction.
Yeah, me. Same thing. I only read hard sci-fi. The other one, if you... my minimum is Asimov, Clarke, Heinlein. That's my minimum.
Oh, I'm good. You don't need anybody else. So yeah, me too. So I started to figure out, I got to figure out what kind of science will let me have parallel universes, and that's string theory.
Yeah, absolutely.
String theory really does say that there is a good chance that there are parallel universes. So that was 2 years of studying the science, not so that I could hold my own with a physicist. I'm a fake physicist, but enough that I could understand it to put it in the story and really use it. And it also was fun to figure out the history of how we got there. And I built that into the story too. And I showed it very differently than the rest of the story. There's a lot of Tesla, a lot of Einstein, a lot of Edison, Maxwell, and that kind of stuff. But I put it in just sort of like in the main character's flow of thinking and his stream of consciousness. You've got bits of information of how he as a kid got interested and pulled into it, and then what drives his curiosity later on. Mm-hmm. And of course, Tesla's a big part of the Tesla ends up being the Maltese Falcon in my story. So
yeah. Did you ever think about exploring gravity on the book?
No, but it would be fun. I mean, that's
let me explain why I asked this. Because if we agree, let's agree that there's a multiverse. That the Big Bang doesn't create only a universe, but a multiple amount of universes. One of the weirdest things in physics that always gets discussed, or at least that I explore a lot, is the part of why the strong forces are all that as strong as they are in this universe. Gravity shouldn't be as weak as it is at all.
Right.
It makes no sense.
Right. It's not that strong. Look at this. I got to pick this pencil up. Take that, gravity.
But you know what I mean? Is the way this question is, why is so weak? And the obvious answer is because in the other multiverse, in the other universes on the multiverse, gravity is much stronger.
Ooh, I like that.
So imagine that for whatever reason, the door is open from one universe to the other. The universe where the strongest force is gravity.
Yeah.
And, that's us.
Yeah, we got a lot of pancake people.
So, you know what I mean? So that exploration about what we lack and what we have in this universe compared to the other, aside of the factoids, as we said, your wife is somebody else's wife, or you're dead, or whatever, or Batman is not Bruce Wayne, is his father, as they did in Flashpoint. This is the forces of the universe, the constant forces. They have to change between universes too. So exploring that part has always been fascinating to me.
Yep. Yeah, I had a lot of fun playing with it. I did find a guy who was a conspiracy theory nut and a physicist, and he helped me out a lot because he also works he's like a kind of guy that you hire to do to protect your computer systems and all this kind of stuff. So he was able to tell me what hardened bunkers looked like, and he came up with the idea that because I was trying to figure out how does RASL, he moves from one universe to the other, and in my mind I kind of imagined that there's just a thin membrane-like barrier between them, and that his little one-man craft could pierce it, but not normal things just can't. It's just when he especially revved up the engines and got his magnets going.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this guy came up with this cool idea that, because I was like, once he changes universes, he makes an opening in that little barrier, that little membrane, and goes in. He said, once he makes that hole, the hole will stay, because the hole wasn't made by that universe. It was made by him, and he vibrates at a different frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So the hole will never stop. The entry point will never stop rippling. So that meant he could get into a universe. He can't be spied on. Now he's in the universe. He might leave a trail, but it's really that entry point that allowed him to go back and forth, find his way, and to follow other people, and eventually allowed the government to find him.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly why I mentioned the gravity. I was remembering those holes. Imagine if the forces of the other universe, since that hole is still open, came from one to the other. The consequences, the consequences of his actions that he would never think of.
Well, there are those particles that flit in and out of existence.
Yes, absolutely.
And the only explanation is that they go back to other universes and then come back into ours.
Absolutely. Electrons can be in several places at the same time. Why not in several universes?
That's right. And even if that's not right, it was definitely good enough for science fiction.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We'll keep it. That we can keep as part of our hard sci-fi. Blake Rayval tells us, Bone means so much to me, and now to my daughter too. I think it's among the highest achievements in the comic book medium. When drawing, say, Bone or RASL, how many hours a day did you draw?
Whew, a lot. It takes up a lot of time. I worked generally from about 10 in the morning in the early days. I was like 10 in the morning till about 2 o'clock at night. So there you go. That would be 12 plus 4 hours. That would be very typical, and that pretty much was throughout to this day. I don't really have as many deadlines because I just do projects as I like now. But back then, I had to put Bone out every 2.5 months, and even though I kind of got a reputation towards the end of the books coming out slower, that was only at the very end, the last couple of years. For the first 10 years, I was cranking out 5 books a year easy. And I would work around the clock on deadline. Like the last 3 weeks before I have to send it to the printer, or else I pay penalties in the distribution system. I would work around the clock. 2 in the morning, I might take a nap till 5 in my studio, get up and work until 8, go over to the house, wake my wife up, my dog, take him out for a walk, have coffee and breakfast with my wife. She would go to our office. She's my business partner, and she has 2 full-time employees that help her with publishing. I would go back to work until dinner time. So around 6 o'clock, I would take a break, go over, we'd have dinner together. I'd usually have a glass of wine. Sometimes she would cook, sometimes I would cook, sometimes we'd go out. I'd usually have 1 glass of wine, and then I'm back to work by like 7:30, 8 at the latest. And then I go till 2 o'clock, grab a nap, and I start all over for 3 weeks. It's a lot of drawing, no kidding.
And a lot of passion, right? If you don't have the passion and you don't love the medium, you are not going to do it. That's why I always say when people say, "Oh, can you get rich making comics?" No. First, no. Maybe in an exception or 2. But second, you do it because you love it, right?
Yeah, I often have met people like at parties and stuff that don't really know about comics and stuff, and they'll be introduced to me as this guy that draws comic books, and they say, "Oh, really? Oh, well, my wife has a children's book she wants to do. You could illustrate it." And I go, "Well, thank you, but that's not really my line." And I don't. And they're like, "No, really, you got to do it. You got to read it. You're definitely going to want to do this." And I can't. I really wouldn't have time. And they're like, "You don't have time? You draw comic books. How much time does that take?" I'm like, how about 20 hours a day? Obviously, it's not that all the time. You would die if it was. But there, you get to this thing called deadline time, and you are angry at yourself for letting any time slide. You really do need to be disciplined.
Yes, yeah, but sometimes you just can't. It's life. That's part of the work. Sometimes you just have to breathe. You know?
I don't know a single cartoonist that in those early morning hours, and you have 3 days left, but 3 weeks worth of work to do. I don't know one cartoonist that isn't tearing their hair out and just going, "Oh, what?"
But hey, let's say it also this way: desperation makes you very creative, right?
Yes, and actually, those you start losing. You have to start making choices of I want this, I need this to be good, and I'm going to work on that, and something else is going to have to get cut, because you literally in those days of bone, I had to send the book to the printer through the FedEx.
Yeah,
and there was a point where Vijaya and the FedEx guy are pulling the artwork out of my hand, and I'm like, "No, don't take it, no." And so what I would do is I would do all, like I said, 20, 24 pages, whatever that story was, that issue, that chapter. I would get all of them going at the same time. So I would have the story all, written in script form, trace it up larger in blue pencil on all the real boards, rule out the panels. I would paste on the lettering. I developed my own lettering. I have a page I'm working on right now. I don't know if you can see it. But what's happening here, these letters, I don't know if you can really see that, but they're like pasted on. They're a slightly different color.
Yep.
So I paste it's my lettering, but I put it into a font program and do it. And what I do, this is actually a better example of another page I'm working on, where the most important thing is their faces. As you can see, I've doodled them all out, but the very first thing I'm spending my time on is the faces. Because that's where all the acting is.
Yeah.
And when I get into crunch time, I do not want to be doing the acting. I need to be doing backgrounds at the very end. I need to be putting in trees in the background that I can blow off.
Yeah.
You cannot blow off facial expressions, or that, like I said, the acting, the emoting that you're drawing.
The emotional part we mentioned before, which is the most important thing. But of course, when you're tired and desperate, you don't want to be doing the most important part for you. You want to do that first, and then you go with the other, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay. Locke from Howard says, "Hello, Jeff. How did you reach the definitive shape of Bone and the other protagonists of the book? Did they change a lot from your original idea?
You talking about the actual character designs?
Yeah, the character design. Yeah.
Yeah. They did. Some of them did. I made a very conscious decision early on to try to keep the bones, especially Phone Bone, who was sort of like the main bone, to not change. I didn't want him to change. I knew this project was long. I didn't know how long. I didn't know exactly how many issues it would be. I just knew it was going to be I was going to be years. But I also knew it was one big story, and that eventually someone would be able to sit down and read the whole thing in a single weekend. So I decided to concentrate on making sure Phone Bone didn't change very much, or the other bones. They did a little bit, but actually not too much. I worked really hard at that. Phone Bone looks very similar to he does. Maybe the first issue he's a little blobbier, but by the second issue I had him down and I tried to keep him from changing. Now, some of the other characters, like King Doc, he changed a lot. And I wasn't trying to change him. It just happened, it just happened over the course of years. Sometimes he looked like a big egg with legs. Sometimes he looked like this really terrifying, hairy monster up on two legs like a T-Rex. It was a lot of fun. Thorn, though, was the most interesting one because she changed in a way that I didn't intend or try to do, but it worked for the story. I got better. After 12 years of drawing, you just get better at it. And Thorn started to look more like she always looked more real compared to Phone Bone in the very beginning, but she also kind of looked like a Disney princess. By the time we got to the end, she looked a little more human. Her ears were a little more anatomically correct, her fingernails, her perspectives, her foreshortening of her limbs and stuff. That actually, I knew it was happening. I could see it. I wasn't trying to do it, but I just was getting better at drawing. I'd been drawing so much. But I liked it because the character was going through this journey where she's the Luke Skywalker of our story. Even though the bones are the stars of this epic, she's those co-stars. She's Luke Skywalker. And she's learning. She's going from being an innocent, living, in this distant corner of the woods in a cabin with her protective grandma, to taking responsibility for what's happening in her world and to the people around her. And I thought her becoming more realistically drawn, not so realistically that it throws you out of the story, I didn't think, but I thought it fit her.
But it's amazing because it's part of the reading it now, as a whole volume, as Stiberri published here, the omnibus of it. You can see that evolution of you as a creator, as a writer, as an artist, of the characters. So seeing her evolve, it's also seeing you evolve as a creator, and that's why I think it fits so well, as you just said. Is you getting better, made her a more whole character when you drew her. So when you get to the end, she's more real for the reader.
Yeah. She was more real for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Pedro Mercado, hello everyone. Thank you for making it possible to listen to the master creator of Bone. Thank you, Pedro. When Jeff freezes, his audio is running just fine, at least here for me. Yes, it's the same thing for me. When he freezes, we don't lose the sound, so the audio. So that's.
Do I really freeze, or do I just stop moving? I mean, could I go like this?
The screen freezes, just literally freezes. You lose quality in frames and suddenly you freeze. Right now you're moving, but the quality is go down until you suddenly freeze. Right. And then
this is an experiment. I bought a power booster. So the Wi-Fi from my house was getting boosted over to my drawing table. So sorry, but my next one I'll do it over at the house.
Don't worry, it's fine. We don't lose the audio, so that's good. Let me see. Blake Rival asked you, which comic book have you studied the most?
Which comic book? When I was young, I was very into a comic strip called Pogo by a guy named Walt Kelly. I mean, a lot of comics aficionados know it, but it's rarely known outside the U.S. because it was full of U.S. politics and that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, should be a lot more known than it is in
Yeah, but the drawings were just incredible. There was so much weight, and if you see a pogo strip, you'll see what I'm trying to do and failing to achieve. That is my style. In fact, that's what I describe your style as. What you're trying to do and failing to do is actually your style.
Yeah, but it becomes a part of the style because it makes you keep striving to get better.
Yeah.
What you can't do is, but the next day you're going to see the patient sheet and say, God. And then you keep doing it until you achieve it. That's what you were talking about, Thorn. It gets to a moment when it's natural. It just evolves naturally, right? Because of you trying to get better. So, of course, what you don't achieve to do, what you are not able to do as an artist, it's always what makes you the better artist the next day.
Ooh, I see a question here that you and I are going to like. Who are your favorite movie directors? And can you give us an update on Bone at Netflix?
Okay.
Well,
let's jump.
I'll go first with the movie directors, and then you go, and then I'll talk about Netflix. How about that? So my favorite directors, I think the first director that I knew who it was Jaws, Steven Spielberg. I was 15 years old when Jaws came out. I was actually visiting family friends in Cape Cod, and we saw the movie at a matinee, and then went straight to the Nantucket Sound to go in, and nobody went in the water. Nobody. I don't mean not just my group. Nobody got in the water. We were terrified. That was the first movie that interested me in how it was made. How did that? Why did that work so well? How was it made? And I actually bought like a paperback book on the behind the scenes. I'd never seen or cared about it before. So and I continue to be amazed by Spielberg's movies. What's amazing about him is you watch a Spielberg movie and you know it's a Spielberg movie. It feels like a Spielberg movie, but you forget the director. You believe that it's happening. I mean, especially it's a good movie. I mean, everybody has some that are not that great. Let me give you two more quick ones. I'm a huge fan of Kurosawa, the guy that did Seven Samurai and the Yojimbo films. Unreal. Hidden Fortress. I mean, that guy's films are masterclasses on how to do genre pictures. I love it. John Ford is another genre guy who loves Westerns, and hey, he knows how to set up a shot. You go.
I don't think he was asking me. I don't think they care about my tastes at all. But
it's fun for me to hear.
Okay, so let me see. I could always say I agree with Orson Welles. You know, it's first John Ford, and then there's the rest. I agree with Orson Welles on that. You know, I think John Ford is well above everybody else. He was able to do anything. And what you said about Spielberg, that's John Ford to me.
That's what?
About Spielberg, he was never there. You know, it was his movie.
But he's never there.
He was never there, you know, except for maybe on The Searchers and a couple more where you can see he played a lot more with the angles, with the camera angles, etc. But John Ford was just, you know, I am the witness to the story. So that's it for me. And that he could be the, you know, 3, 4 maybe. It depends on the day. But I would say John Ford first, and maybe David Lynch. I don't know. It depends. I don't want to answer. You know, the questions are for you, not for me.
I know. I mean, you could very quickly go down the rabbit hole. I'm a huge Tarantino fan. I loved Kill Bill. I loved Pulp Fiction. His new movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Oh my God, I could not believe when that was over that it had been 3 hours.
Yeah.
I was like, how am I going to make it through a 3-hour movie, man? I mean, it was 3 hours went by like that, and that last moment was just like sweet. I won't say any more than that.
Yeah, no, because that's a really easy to spoil movie. But let me see. You said Tarantino. I have to say another one.
All right.
For me, is the biggest genius in that generation. It's just Steven Soderbergh.
Yep.
Everything he does on TV, and I love that he can do anything and everything. He doesn't care. He changes genres. He suddenly is like, I'm going to use $5, do the music, do the editing, do the DP, do the writing, producing, and directing myself, and then the next day I'm going to be, a movie with a big budget. He can move anywhere, and The Nick, for example, is a genius TV show. I love the guy.
All right, an update on Netflix.
Yes.
Okay, so it's been about a year since we announced it, and it was just me and the producer talking plans and kind of working out what we kind of thought it was, and what we were going to do was I was going to fly out at the end of March, and I was going to stay out there for like 3 weeks to a month, and we were going to assemble a team and get everything going. And well, you know what happened at the end of March. The entire universe shut down, and LA really did shut down as a town. It was flat. So the bad news is the pandemic pretty much set us back a year. But we didn't sit idly by. We still recruited people that we really wanted to have working on it.
Nice.
And some of them were, kind of in contracts. So in a way, the pandemic kind of worked out, because there were a couple of these guys that I really thought should be on bone, and they were in contracts until like September. Mm-hmm. So, and they came on. So the pandemic didn't really hurt us as much as you would think. So that's the good news, is we are back underway. We were initially saying things would probably be on the air like in the fall of 22. Bad news is it's probably the fall of 23 now, because it takes like 2 years to do a whole season. It's going to be 2D hand-drawn animation. We've already done a couple of storyboards, and they're fucking great. They're great. Other than that, I think it's too soon to even say any more than that. But just to let you know, it is moving forward after a delay.
Mm-hmm. Let me wait. Did you talk about 2D animation? Have you watched the Snoopy in Space?
Snoopy in Space? No.
The Apple TV Plus one. It's amazing. It's 2D. I'm loving it.
Oh, I got to see it. I haven't watched it. What's it on?
It's so good. I didn't exactly love the 3D, the animation. It was fine, but when I saw Apple TV Plus was doing it, it's 10 like 8-10 minutes per episode tops, and they were doing one. And I was like, oh, the 3D again, no, and then suddenly it was like, oh, it's 2D.
Oh, that'd be great to see them in 2D. That'd be long in 2D.
I'm loving it. It's basically Snoopy. Well, of course, Snoopy trying to become an astronaut.
Well, I will definitely look for that. Is it on Netflix, or is it?
It's no Apple TV Plus.
Apple TV Plus. All right. Dang. They keep coming out with things I want to see. That new Bruce Springsteen special.
Oh, that's amazing. The documentary, the letter.
I know. You got to join. I didn't want to join another. I don't want to pay for another app.
Well,
I'm going to, because there's too many things.
With Apple, you can do a trick. If you need any Apple devices, they give you Apple TV Plus for free for a year. Oh, there you go. I'm going to do that. And the other one, they opened today something that is called Apple One, which is like a bundle, where you get Apple Arcade, Apple TV Plus, like a huge amount of space on iCloud, and what is the other? Apple Music. I think it's for $14 a month. You get the full things.
Wow.
So
very cool.
They have a lot of money. They can, but let me be bad with you. The Letter to You documentary, you just need to see it. If you like Springsteen as I do, documentary is
I do. And I actually, a few years ago, I bought a really beautiful box set. It was like the 30th anniversary of Born to Run. And for some reason, I never played. There was a documentary in it of him and the E Street Band doing their first album together, and it was really difficult. And
wait. Have you watched the documentary of the making of Darkness on the Edge of Town?
No.
That's incredible.
I got to see that. Okay.
When they did the 30th anniversary of that album, HBO made a documentary, The Making of the Darkness, and he tells the whole story how his representative of the time, his agent, he stole all the copyrights for the songs, and that's why he spent a lot of years composing, but not releasing any songs, because if he releases, they could be owned by the representative. It's incredible. It's really, really good, and explains why he had such a big production for many years is because he had a lot of songs that he had been composing for many years, but that he couldn't release because
Well,
of
I
the
definitely want to see that. I see my buddy Tom is writing in saying, tell Jeff he has Apple TV. I know, but I didn't want to actually hit the start the year free trial thing. That's all.
Okay.
I will. It's worth it.
Now that you have at least Snoop in Space, you have the letter thing, and you have the
new Sofia Coppola film with
on the rocks. On the rocks. That opened last week.
I know. I want to see it. So that's it. That's 3 strikes. I'm out. I'm gonna sign up.
Yep. Okay. Alisa Roy asked you tips on how to build up a story.
I'm sorry. Just how to build up a story.
Yeah, tips on how to build up a story.
All right, I will. This is the short version, obviously. Usually, a story is sparked by a single image or an idea. Say, like I pictured my RASL character zapping through dimensions into parallel universes, and it caused him pain. That idea, that image, that I had to like figure out what's the story for that. That's obviously going to be sci-fi. I was in the mood to do noir. So for me, I like working in different genres, like westerns or comedy, fantasy. What are the rules for that? That kind of gives you a few little pieces to guide it by. But more importantly is that prime image that you have that is pulling you forward, that you want to draw or you want to write about. Now the trick is to write out in both directions from that. Mm-hmm. Because anytime you're building a story, the trick is to have a beginning. I'll try to be consistent. Which way is, a beginning, a middle, and an end. Mm-hmm. So if that's your prime image, you've got to get how do we get to that image? I got to come up with, I'm just going to write something that's going to get me to that point. Mm-hmm. Now that's not that easy, but at least that's the structure you follow to do it. And then you get to draw the thing. Yeah, it's happening. And then it goes from there on. Now you got to finish your story, but you need an end. Now think of that on different scales. That might just be one scene. That just might be one scene. Every scene has to do that. And then, but the whole book has to do that too. So it's in a way, it's like an outline. You started, here's the beginning, here's the middle, here's the end. Fill in halfway to that next spot, halfway. It's in some ways it's logical to a point. Mm-hmm. And then it's not logical anymore. Then your ability to tell stories, your imagination takes over. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it'll surprise you. Sometimes it'll force you to work really hard and it won't really work. And I can't remember who told me this, but this was the best advice I ever heard for writer's block. When you're working on a story and you get to, and it's just all of a sudden it's like, what happened? It doesn't work anymore. I can't do it. I'm a phony. I can't write. I can't draw. But I remember it was Kurt Busiek. Uh-huh. Kurt Busiek gave me this advice. Whenever that happens, just go back to where the last point where the story worked and throw away everything else. Don't even think about it. Just throw it away and go right back and start at that point, kind of read up and then keep going. And that has worked for me 100% of the time. That's a pretty cool trick.
Yeah. That's it. I think that Greg Rucka told me when we were here that he was writing a novel and suddenly he was finished the second act. Oh, okay. And now in the third act, I'm going to finish my book. And suddenly he started saying, and my character started fighting me.
Yeah.
And saying, no, that's not who I am. That's not what I should do. Stop. And he was, trying to trickle down. It's like, my ending is the right one. Go in the one direction, the other. And he was like that for 2 months. And he couldn't move until he did exactly what you just said. Until he said, you know what? Throw it all away.
Yeah, just after. That happened to me on Bone. There was in the original ending written for Bone. And it was something I'd even figured out in the comic strips and when I was doing it in my university paper, was that Grandma Ben was going to sacrifice herself at the end for Thorn. Mm-hmm. And I kept trying to write to that. And one of the things I did that was kind of mean, I was like, in order to make people really care that grandma bites it, I'm going to make people really like her. I'm going to make her the coolest, most likable character in the book. I just really laid it on thick. And then, I'm into it, and I'm like, I'm a year out, and I'm like, I don't know. This isn't really feeling right. And grandma was pretty much not having it. Grandma was way too important to the story. She made herself that way. And it ended up being Lucius who bought it at the end, made the sacrifice. And you know what? That made more sense. I know I'm spoiling a little bit, but this is more fun to talk about.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say, that it made more sense.
It did make more sense, and I didn't even understand how much more sense it made until I was talking to somebody some storyteller that worked in like animation, and he said, "You know what? Lucius is the Grail King from the Holy Grail, and the Grail King." And I was like, "Oh my God, he is!" I totally made him that. The idea of the Grail King and the Holy Grail is that he is the older generation that has. He's not really bringing new ideas to the kingdom anymore, and the land has gone waste, and there's locusts and droughts, and he's also been wounded between the thighs, which is also symbolic. And there I had Lucius being part of the previous generation that had sort of failed the kingdom and given up and gone into hiding with the princess. And not only that, but I actually got him. He was wounded by Rockjaw in the inner thigh, right up by this junk. And some of that was happening on an unconscious level. I mean, the fact that he was the older generation, that I knew, but the fact that I'd wounded him, that was something bubbling up from somewhere. I don't even know. So, but you have to let it happen. You have to go with it. You have to listen to your characters. Sometimes you have to just let it come out, and you don't know how it did it, or I don't want that to scare anybody. I think anybody who really is a writer, whether you're a prose writer or a penciler or what, if you're really a writer, it happens. It just comes.
Yeah, but that's also because that's also a tip that I always give to the kids that are starting, is to break the rules the way Jeff just said. You need to know them first, or you need to learn how to walk before you try to run. Then it comes unconsciously, as you just said. You're just working on it, and the story and the characters guide you because you've been working on it for many years, and you know the rules. And your brain knows how to break them, even if you are not noticing, right?
Yeah, sometimes it's very hard to explain where ideas come from. Sometimes they're just a lot of hard work. Jokes are hard, man. It's one of those other things. It's like, okay, I have the idea. I got the joke, but to set up the joke so that it's funny is difficult to do. Yeah,
and we go back to the anatomy in these things. People, just Google. I'm not going to tell you, it's too easy. Google how many muscles of your body or your face have to move to cry, and how many you have to move to smile and to laugh. Just check it. You'll see. Okay. Just see how difficult. What's the easy thing and what's the difficult thing. See that Mandres. Sorry, I almost didn't get here. This is in a signing session in Barcelona that was becoming long. I remember that he excused himself to go to the restroom, and everybody thought he would never come back. Did
I come back?
Wait. Let me complete the story, because I was in your table, so I know this. I know the story. The luck I had is that when he came back, they moved his table so he could sit and finish his signing, because there was a next turn coming to sign. So he put him right in front of me. I was there. I was taking care of the line, and yes, you came back, and yes, I was the guy who moved the table. So the guys that had to start later could start, and you could finish your line because you want.
It is a strange phenomenon that continues to this very day. I'm so grateful, but people want to get their book signed, and People come back year after year to get their new book signed. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
I am truly grateful to all the readers of Bone, especially the ones that followed it for 12 years. That's how long it took, to tell the story. That's quite a bit of patience.
Yes. Well, but
And of course, the ones that are still the new ones. I love the new ones.
and it was, but it was rewarded. The patient was rewarded, so that's fine. Says he says I felt the hatred from anybody else because they moved the table right in front of him.
Yeah.
In Andres, they blame me. Believe me, they don't even blame you because
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Believe me,
I let them blame you too. I just can't worry about that.
Remember what I'm sure you don't remember, but what I said to you at that moment was, "It's my job to get the hatred."
Yep.
So
I agree. I totally agree.
It's my job. Don't agree. Be kind. No, I'm kidding. Blake Rival, what kind of tools do you use to ink? And do you have any new art projects?
I ink with my brushes. Here, I have a couple brushes right here. They're just watercolor brushes, but they're sable hair, which means they come off of some kind of a dog-like creature that's called a sable. Hopefully they just clip them off and they grow back. I don't know. I hope that's true. But that's the one that works for me the best. And you can see it's a number 1. It's a very small brush. I'll try to put it in a white area there so you can see it.
Yeah.
And I can get all my thicks and thins right from it. I can get all those thicknesses. It's hard to see this. Which way? This way.
Yes.
All right. Perfect. So that's pretty much it. I draw. You can probably see I draw with a blue pencil. This is the old school way of doing it, because before Photoshop, before digital scanners, we used to have to take our black and white artwork to a camera. A camera that was pointed down, and you lay it down, your artwork down, and you had a special high contrast film in it that could only see black or white. And you didn't want to have regular pencil on there because it would show up as a kind of a messy, dirty thing. So if you drew your comics in blue pencil, that would not show up on the film, and just the ink would show up. And I started back in that era when that was still the way to do it. And that's just the way I learned to do it. And I have plenty of young friends, male and female artists, that try to get me to draw on a Cintiq. It's too late for me, people. Too late. Go on without me. I mastered this son of a gun, and I'm going to use it.
I honestly thought you were going to say with the brush like this in hand, "Get off my lawn."
Yeah. You crazy kids. Also, when I inked on my Cintiq with my brush, it made a mess. It's really hard to clean.
And his second question was, and do you have any art projects?
Do I have any current projects?
Art projects, yes.
Yes, I am currently working on a book I started about 5 years ago, and I put it up as a webcomic. And I didn't think it was really working as a webcomic, and I only partly blame that on the medium of webcomics. It was really I didn't understand how to use it, and I did not make a story the way I normally make a story. So I took it down, and it was called Tüki.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, because those drawings,
those pages I'm showing you, I'm working.
They look like Tüki, yeah.
It's Tüki. I'm bringing Tüki back. I have rewritten it from the beginning. In fact, it has a new beginning. I was able to save.
You're restarting it from scratch.
From scratch, pretty much. Yeah. Although I was able to save some of the artwork. I hadn't finished like 100 pages, and of those 100 pages, probably 80 of them I'm able to keep the artwork, but I had to change some of the artwork, and I had to rewrite a lot of it, and I have new chapters. So it is now a 200-page graphic novel. It's 90% complete. Tom Gott, who I saw, he was in the chat there. He does the color for me, so he's coloring it. Like I said, we have it's like 90% complete, inked, lettered, colored. We still have a couple of chapters that are penciled, but I still have to ink and he still has to color. So I'm hopeful that Tüki will re-emerge as a 200-page graphic novel probably next fall, if everything goes well.
I really want to see it. I really want to see it. That's the other thing I was gonna ask you before we go back to the people there, because correct me if I'm wrong. When I read Tüki online, I loved it, but I always felt you weren't comfortable.
Did it? Because I was, and I don't think I knew I was uncomfortable. I think I didn't know, I didn't have the story as well figured out as I normally do.
Mm-hmm.
I told you, I researched RASL,
Yeah,
and worked on it for 4 years. Bone, I kind of didn't know what I was doing when I was drawing it as a comic strip in college, but it was another 6 or 7 years before I did it as a comic. So I was thinking about it, getting the story right. As soon as I finished RASL, I jumped right into Tüki. I had a basic idea, and I came up with the ending, and the ending is the same. I haven't changed the ending, but I did not have the characters down. The whole play the game, the role playing that I was talking about before, I had not done that to a sufficient degree. I have now. Mm-hmm. So now it's still the same story, but I needed to go back and give the characters real personalities and purpose.
Mm-hmm. So. Let me see. Alicia Roy asked you, do you have any inspirations? I guess she means, by other creators or.
Yes, one of my all-time favorites is Karl Barks, who I know is very popular in Europe, mostly in France, but definitely also
here in Spain. Him and Don Rosa are both really, really popular.
Yeah, yes, and Don Rosa is actually a friend of mine. He's a contemporary, so I don't list him as an influence, but he is an inspiration because the kinds of stories that he commits to and pulls off.
We'll talk. I'd love to have Don Rosa here.
Okay.
I'd love to. Anyway, please go.
Don Rosa, I'll tell you a quick Don Rosa story. He lives. I live in Ohio, which is it's sort of, where Ohio is. It's like under the Great Lakes. It's in the middle there. Well, directly below Ohio is Kentucky, and that's where Don Rosa lives. And his hobby is growing hot peppers. And as you can tell by my
yes,
that's actually a bottle. That's actually real. That's filled with Tabasco. I really like Tabasco. I have to put a lot of it on my sandwiches and stuff. So he sends me he has seriously like a half acre of the hottest peppers. I'm talking like Trinidad scorpions and habaneros and
wow.
And there's a hotter one now, and I forget what it is, but somebody will remind me.
I think there's one that is I never remember the name, but I think there's one that is
there's one more new one, and of course he makes those too.
Yeah, I think habanero is like the second one, but there's one that like literally can kill you.
I eat somebody listening to this, put it in the comments.
Yes, please. For the name of the
on the Kelvin scale or something like that of heat and pain.
The cold scale, yeah.
So he every fall he has a bunch of he has more than he can eat, and he sends them to a couple of his cartoonist buddies, and I'm one of them. And I get this box. This cardboard box arrives, and he warns me because it's just wrapped in newspaper. He doesn't want it to go bad, so it arrives, and I pull them out and I divide them all up. I should put this on the web, but they're beautiful. All these different. They're orange and green and sometimes purple. Dragon breath. No, I don't think that's it.
Nope. No.
Somebody Google it. Google the hottest.
I'm going to Google it while you speak. Don't worry about it.
Okay. And I always try to do something with them. Because I can eat hot. I can eat the Carolina Reaper. That sounds good. I don't know if that's it. Tom, give it up.
Hottest peppers in the world 2020.
All right. What's the hottest one?
15 of the hottest peppers. Ghost pepper is 15.
Ghost peppers.
Pot Jonah is 14. Trinidad pot pepper is 13. Infinity pepper is 12. Pot Primo 11. Pot Barakpor 7 is 10. Pot strain brain, it looks like a brain actually, it's 9. Naga viper, oh my god.
All right, good enough. So he sends me a box of these, and I eat jalapenos, hot jalapenos. I just chop them up raw. I don't pith them or anything, and just put them on sandwiches like lettuce. I love it. I eat hot, put them on pizzas, everything. I love it. I cannot eat these peppers. I have to do something to them. I have to make them into a hot sauce. I have to, turn them into a mash, let them ferment. Turn them into. My favorite thing is to dry them. You can get one of those things where you can dry them, and then you can crush them up into powder, and then I add dried maple and some sugar, and then I turn that into a rub for fish and for chicken. And man, I rub it all over, and it's hot, but enough of I don't overwhelm it with the sugar, but the sugar caramelizes, and damn. It is really good.
You have to send me a bottle of that. I
will. Last year I made something called sambuca, I believe, which he said was like he just used it on his breakfast toast. I was like, I can't even eat it.
Sambuca for breakfast. Oh, that's not. The guy has strength. Yeah. No. But but they just say about drying the peppers on with maple. Oh my God, that sounds amazing, my friend.
It is. It's really good. It's good. Try it. You could probably find a recipe similar to that online.
Okay. Blake Roybal, is Moby Dick your favorite book? And if so, how many times have you read it?
I've read it. I read it once a year for about 3 years straight, and I think I read it one more time since then, so about 4 times. And the last time was probably right after I started putting Moby Dick jokes in Bone. So it's been a long time since I read it, but every time I read it, I understood it better and better and better. Mm-hmm. It's one of those books that really grows with you, and it's something I tried to do to Bone, but it's something you don't really have control over. But I kind of think from the reaction, I'm probably on the 4th generation of Bone people now. I've got the 3rd generation was 15 was like 15 years ago. So I'm starting to have the kids that are 6 or so coming in now. They're all brand new. Mm-hmm. It's amazing.
Absolutely. And every new generation has a new way of reading it. It's they understand it in a different way.
As they get older,
right?
Yeah, they tell me that they get something different out of it. Mm-hmm. When they read it, from when they read it when they were 9, from when they read it when they were 18 or something.
Absolutely. Your friend Ben Bender says, Jeff, what font program do you use?
The original font program was what was that? It might have been I think it was called Fontographer. Mm-hmm. I don't even know if that's still a thing anymore. The original one was done on Fontographer, and I literally just ruled out and did my alphabet once straight, and then I did it once bold, because in comics it's all caps, so the only difference is whether it's bold or not. And then Vijaya entered it. She was able to enter it into the Fontographer. I don't think I could have figured it out back in 1991 or whatever it was with our Apple IIe. We were using our fancy Apple IIe.
It was fancy back then.
It was fancy back then. Yes, it was. Now I think we went to a service that will do it, and I was able to just hand over my font in the Fontographer. He was able to extract it, and he rebuilt it, remeasured it in ways that Jay and I weren't able to really getting the kerning right between each letter. Yeah. It looks really good now.
That's what Richard Starkins used to do, right? In Comic Craft, he would take the lettering from the artist and process it.
And we went to someone like Richard Starkins. We didn't go to him, but not like we could have. But somebody else.
No, I didn't mean that you did it with Richard. I meant that's what he used to do. Okay, El Torres says Jeff won't remember this, but I met him at STCC back in 1999. I showed him my first comics in Spanish. He gave me some precious advice about how to pace the storytelling, and I still followed his advice today.
Well, what did I tell you? Get a real job. You'll have to write us back and tell us what I said. But I'm glad that it doesn't sound like I gave you advice that ruined your life. So I'll take that as a win.
Yeah, absolutely.
How are we doing on time here, David? Are we?
You need to leave or something?
Yeah. Yes, I think it's around 2.
So let's go fast and furious with the rest of questions. And
okay. All right. Here we go.
To say enough, you say enough at any given time. Don't worry, people is used to
Okay.
that. Felipe Brel, I only learned of Pogo from Alan Moore's Swamp Thing issue. Yes, Alan Moore is also a big fan of Pogo.
Yeah.
James, what advice do you have for writers creating stories for early readers?
I don't. I'm not. I don't write for early readers. In fact, I recently did a children's book with the Bone characters. I did 2 of them, and they were not beloved. I write what I like. So if you like children's book, then you'll be fine.
Yeah, that's always the same answer I give to artists and writers. Write what you love, draw what you love, and then it'll work out. Felipe Brel says, interesting that John Ford and Kurosawa always come up with comic creators. Also, Kurosawa was a fan of John Ford as well.
I think it's because they're genre directors and they aren't ashamed of it. They embrace it and they do it better than anybody else does anything else.
Yep.
And they're so good. They tell stories so clear, and yet there's so much emotion between the characters. They're just the best.
Absolutely.
They're the best at telling a story in a square. And why wouldn't a cartoonist, a comics artist love that?
Absolutely. Tongad, okay, that's what he said about having Apple TV. You said it before. Yes, he knows he has to just activate it. How long it takes you to make a story in general? I'm making a story and I'm still not done because I'm feeling like I'm slacking off and not have inspiration or ideas.
Well, that's going to slow you down for sure. Not having an idea. That's the start. Have an idea. And don't come up with an idea that you think, I think somebody at a comic book company will like, or this is do the kind of stuff you want to do and take the time to come up with a story. Just look for inspiration. Mm-hmm. How long does it take? That's up to you. I did a comic book, a chapter of Bone every 2.5 months. And that's how long it would take me to do a chapter, which was 22 to 24 pages. And it took me the whole time. I was working right up to the deadline. Mm-hmm. And I would put a collection out about once a year. So a graphic novel of approximately 150 pages, could be a little less, could be a little more, took about a year. That's very different than someone who writes a novel, who can probably put a novel out in 6 months. I mean, if as long as everything, all their creative juices are flowing. But we have to write it and draw it, and that takes a long time.
Yeah,
I'm a big Steinbeck fan, one of my favorite authors. But man, I'd like to see him draw that shit.
Andres says, did you move the table for me? Yes, I did move the table, but
no, I'm not moving the table. I'm just moving back and forth. Oh, yeah. You mean like this? Oh no. Star Trek.
You see Dragon Breath. Oh, those are the answers to the peppers. Choose MR. Hi Jeff, I think Bone has been the comic that I have enjoyed the most and my favorite one. For me, the comic to recommend to everybody who wants to start reading comics. I recently read RASL and I thought it was great. Everything is said about Tesla is real. How much research time? He already said that. Thanks in advance and a big hug.
Wonderful. Thank you. Pretty much everything in that I said about Tesla was real. That was, I was very straightforward documentary. One of the only times I fudged a time frame to make it a little more dramatic was after the military came. It's true that Tesla invented radio remote control. He invented remote control. And he used to demonstrate it. And he didn't have a real use for it, really. But the Army didn't get past them how useful it would be to like have a little boat that didn't have anybody on it that you could steer full of dynamite and steer it out toward the enemy fleet. So they came to visit him about that. And he kind of went crazy and went, I got a better idea. Let's build autonomous robots that can make decisions in real time on the battlefield. And then nobody would have to get, killed or maimed anymore. So he was thinking AI back then in the 1880s or whenever that was. And also his laboratory, laboratory in New York City burned down, and he lost everything, and it set him back terribly. He was emotionally really crippled by this loss. Well, I show that in the book as if maybe the military did it, like it happened right afterwards, but it didn't. There's some time went by. It was not an immediate thing. That was one of the very few things I kind of fudged in order to create a more dramatic beat in the story. Everything else is real, man. And thank you for liking RASL. I appreciate it very much. And I hug you back.
Just so you know, it wasn't the military. It was Edison who burned his place down.
Yes.
That's a conspiranoid theory that's been around for 100 years. So I was really glad when you didn't go to that trope again.
Yeah,
I'm completely honest.
I had to be the military.
Absolutely.
What is true, it's amazing, is that in World War II, when he was developing his death ray, he was already deemed crazy, and he had fallen out of favor with the public, so he had no money. But the Germans were heading into his homeland of Czechoslovakia. He's from Czechoslovakia, right? And they were invading it, and he got panicked, and he says, I've developed the death ray. I can knock a fleet of planes out of the sky. I can harden blocks and columns of air. I can do all this stuff. And he took it to the government, the U.S. government. They weren't interested. He then gave it to France, England, and Russia, because they were our allies in World War II. And he was like, please do something. With this, I promise you it'll work. I can't build a prototype because I don't have any money, but use this to fight the Nazis. Well, when our government found out that Tesla had given these very detailed plans for a death ray to Russia, they got very interested, and they set up a meeting. I don't remember the exact year. It was like one of the last years of that. Was it 43, 44, but it was on June 8th, I believe. Mm-hmm. And on June 9th, he was found dead in his hotel room. And I mean, that I did not make that up. He was going to meet at the White House to talk about how to build his death ray. But the day before, I might have mixed up the dates there. Mm-hmm. The day before his meeting, he was found dead in his hotel.
What a coincidence, right?
What a coincidence, because then the government swarmed in on his hotel, took all his papers, all trunks of all his diaries and journals, and stashed them away in Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio, which was the Area 51 of its time.
What a coincidence! Yes, I don't believe. I am not conspiranoid, but I don't believe in coincidences either. So, Shazam says God is great in RASL. By the way,
God. So I needed the multiverse to feel like somebody was intruding. RASL is this intruder. He's developed this machinery that allows him to go into unnatural places for him. And I wanted the universe to react. And so the universe sends what is apparently this little girl to check in on him. But if you've read RASL, you know that the little girl, I guess this is as the universe could only manifest itself so far into a universe, mm-hmm. and then it couldn't quite do any better than what you see in RASL. Mm-hmm. And I also kind of insinuate that this being, because I was exploring not only string theory and Edison and Tesla, but I was also exploring the Southwestern Indians, the Tono Odom, the Pima Indians, their philosophies, and the hero. I don't have hardly any Wi-Fi. That's why I'm having a problem. And I'm about to lose my battery. But their heroine, the creator of the human race and the savior of the human race, is Spider. This is a female god, Spider. And I imply very much that Elder Brother is in his mountain, but Spider is here helping RASL, mm-hmm. trying to help RASL shut down this machine that allows one universe to drain the other universes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, last one, and we go.
All
Is
right.
there anything that you've been dying to do for years and years and years, and for whatever reason you haven't been able to do, but you are like, I'm going to create this project and finish it before I retire or die or anything in between?
That is the one. That's the one I was showing you guys earlier. This is possibly my last project. Who knows? But it is Tüki. This is the first human to champion fire and marshal the genus Homo. Because before that, you have the Habilines and the Australopithecines, and 3 million years of evolution that's fairly scattershot and all over Africa. But in the year 2 million BC, there was a moment in time where our most direct descendant and other species of humans were alive at the same time and were forced together by climate change, drought, and only one of them could control fire and eat cooked foods, and that was us. And that is a very exciting, I thought that's a good place to try to put a story, because all these species come together. They're all humans, but they're only one of them is going to come out. And this is going to be called Tüki, and it's a 200-page graphic novel. Hopefully it'll be out in this time next year.
Okay.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
All right. All right.
So we're done. Thank you all for being here. Jeff, please don't cut, because I want to give you a proper thank you after we cut the live feed.
Right.
So, but to the rest,
thank you for coming and asking questions. It was wonderful to talk to you. I think we got to pretty much all the questions.
Oh yes.
Hopefully we will get through this pandemic and we can all be together in Barcelona or La Coruña.
Yes, or
Madrid, somewhere we will be in
Spain, or I will go to and see you in San Diego or somewhere. So, thank you so much, everybody. See you on Monday. I am not going to tell you who will be with us on Monday. I usually do, because in 90 minutes you're going to have a live video showing everybody who's going to be on the show in November. Like everybody, I just went crazy. So have fun. Again, wear your mask. Don't be assholes. Have a great weekend. See you Monday. Thank you, Jeff.
Don't breathe on each other.
Exactly. We're off in 3,